The stories presented in this video are real, but we have changed the characters' names and altered images to protect their identities. The creator of this video is not an investigative officer. These narratives have been sourced from various internet platforms. Our intent is not to accuse or target anyone in particular. Thank you for understanding.
Welcome to True Crime Stories Hub. Today we are going to discuss another toxic relationship story. Growing up in a loving household, pursuing aspirations, and being a role model in her community is what many young girls aspire to. Ashley Doolittle was no different. Born on May 20th, 1998, in Louisville, Colorado, she was a bright and enthusiastic kid who acquired her affinity for horses at barely 5 years old. Her love for horseback riding became her identity, which led her to the rodeo world. By the age of 18, she was crowned lady in waiting, one step away from being a rodeo queen. She had her eyes set on lucrative college life ahead as well. But what seemed like the idyllic life would soon be devastated by a tragedy that no one saw coming. A calamity that would devastate not one, but two families. On the evening of June 9, 2016, a seemingly typical day for 18-year-old Ashley Doolittle took a tragic turn. Ashley, a beloved figure in her community and aspiring rodeo queen, had organized a reunion with her ex-boyfriend, Tanner Flores. The Lawn Hagler Reservoir was the spot the pair had agreed to meet and discuss their rocky relationship. Ashley, not understanding what fate had in store for her, entered Tanner's truck. What started off as a talk about a romance would soon take a tragic turn, one that no one in Colorado, even in their wildest fear, would have anticipated. A cold-blooded murder of a teenage girl who was once a symbol of enthusiasm and hope in her neighborhood. Ashley Doolittle was born on May 20th, 1998, in Louisville, Colorado, to Marie and Jeff. From a very young age, she was known to have a type of energy and aura about her that pulled others closer. She has two brothers, Brandon and Michael, and was fortunate enough to have grown up in a family who always loved her and prioritized her aspirations. Ashley, by the age of just 5, had her very first pony, and from that day forward, she never looked back on anything else. Her passion for horseback riding was absolutely enormous and developed at a very young age as well. It was something that really became a part of her identity. She had a great love for horses and established a feeling of community early on, which is what gave her a purpose in life. A few years later, at the age of just 8, she began to ride in horse shows and absolutely fell in love with the rodeo community and lifestyle. She was interested in rodeo activities all the time and had some remarkable successes to her name. In 2016, when Ashley was roughly 18 years old, she was crowned lady in waiting. The title bears prestige importance in the rodeo world and was awarded to someone who would work with the rodeo queen to properly embody the spirit. It comes with a variety of various tasks that include things like planning fundraisers, helping prepare sponsors, visiting community events, learning to be an event spokesman, and much more. Having received such a title was a big accomplishment for her, and it meant that she was just a year away from being rodeo queen herself. She became rather well recognized for her commitment to the rodeo community and was considered as a role model by many teenage females who wished to be exactly like her. Oftentimes, young girls would come up to her and beg for her autograph, offering some light on her character. Ashley was the type of person who would write a personal note to each person who came up for an autograph. It was a sweet and compassionate gesture, and in the note, she would encourage the reader to keep following their aspirations. Apart from this, Ashley was also an active part of the Boulder County 4-Horse program, which attempts to encourage young children to get involved in the horseback riding community. She also competed on plenty of horse judging and hippology teams, used to ride in horse bows, and was even named the champion high individual in the National 4-H Western Roundup. But this wasn't the sum of her ambitions. Ashley was also a founder member and a two-time vice president of the Thomas Valley FFA. The Future Farmers of America, FFA, was an encouraged student organization catered to the interests of people who desired to be interested in agriculture and leadership. Ashley had quite a lot going on for her throughout her time and wanted to pursue the FFA at the state level when she entered college. She graduated from Bertha High in May of 2016 and has aspirations to attend Colorado State University. There, she would major in agriculture business. She had her eyes set on the next chapter in life and didn't know that it would not begin. Her life was ripped to shreds by one individual who decided that if he couldn't have her, then the world wouldn't either. That one individual was Tanner Flores. Ashley had met Tanner back in high school, and both of them were in a relationship that appeared to be normal to the outer world. Think of it like a regular teenage romance, yet the young couple did have some issues. Tanner was claimed to be quite controlling over Ashley, domineering to a point where he controlled what she could and couldn't do. He even barred her from attending parties at college, which didn't make much sense since Ashley was not known for being the party type anyhow. So was he just jealous of her achievements? Did he wish to keep her all to himself? Was he insecure that he'd lose her to someone better? Regardless of what he felt, he always took these personal troubles or concerns out on Ashley in different ways, who was fed up with all this. After a year into the relationship, she recognized that Tanner wasn't right for her and decided to break up with him. The decision, as it turns out, was not that clear for Tanner. On June 4, 2016, Tanner requested that he and Ashley go on a hike in Estes Park and discuss their relationship. He probably didn't grasp what it meant to have a talk, because even though Ashley had split up, he thought the discussion went wonderfully and the two were back together. He either didn't get the message or didn't want to accept it. The following day, Ashley had gone out with some friends to the Sundance Steakhouse and Saloon, and Tanner showed up there as well. Witnesses at the site alleged that Tanner at some point grabbed her, twirled her around in his direction, and sought to communicate with her. However, Ashley was so fed up with all this and wanted nothing to do with Tanner. She ended up leaving the site, but the next day, Tanner got her to meet him again at Lawn Hagler Reservoir so the two could converse. By the time the talk concluded, Tanner somehow felt they were back together, even though Ashley had emphasized that they weren't. The day following that, Ashley went back to the Sundance Steakhouse and Saloon. This time she even reached out to Tanner and told him not to come since she didn't want to see him again. Tanner, however, came up with a falsehood claiming his keys were locked inside his truck and he needed Ashley to come pick him up, but Ashley just ignored this message. 4 days after the trip, on June 8th, Ashley agreed to go and sell some scrap metal with Tanner. At the time, she didn't know this would mark the commencement of a tragic life experience. That day, Tanner ended up searching through her phone and discovering that she'd been texting 2 other guys. He assumed Ashley was flirting with the other guys and accused her of infidelity. At the time, both Ashley and Tanner had not gotten back together. Later that night, Tanner contacted the 2 guys and made Ashley incredibly angry. Then Tanner texted Ashley the following message: "I hope you know what you threw away. I gave you everything and spent so much money on you." You were too busy attempting to fuck Tori and Jared behind my back. You were nothing near loyal. I'm going to do something stupid now. Bye. Ashley really answered, attempting to defend herself, and up until this point, she wanted to be friends with him, but things had went a bit too far. The next day, Tanner again messaged Ashley, asking if the two of them could meet up and discuss. She'd told him that she had been in Denver that morning, but she would be able to meet him later in the day. While Ashley was in Denver, Tanner grabbed his dad's firearm and went to shoot at Carter Lake, stating that it would help him unwind. He continued to text Ashley throughout the day. And in one of the texts, he even mentioned he missed her. Ashley was so angry by all of this that she ended up texting him, "Stop," but she had agreed to meet him later in the day, simply because she didn't like being a harsh or unkind person. During the afternoon of June 9th, both of them met together at the Lawn Hagler Reservoir, where Ashley entered inside Tanner's truck. Little did she realize, that would be the last thing she ever did. At around 7:30 p.m., her parents went out to hunt for her because she hadn't arrived home by that time. 30 minutes later, around 8 p.m., they spotted her automobile in one of the parking spaces near the reservoir. Both Jeff and Marie were positive that Ashley would have texted them if she was planned to be late. Given this, they came to the conclusion that something wasn't right and promptly called the sheriff's office and reported her missing. Local authorities were eager to pitch in on the activity and commence search efforts. They began calling Ashley's acquaintances and family members to get any information they could. During their attempts, one thing that struck out the most was that everyone kept referencing the name Tanner. The authorities soon learned that Tanner and Ashley were in a relationship and had a split. They were made aware of Tanner's disturbed of the separation, and one individual even told them that Tanner had put something on Snapchat that made him believe that he was suicidal. Other people the authorities spoke to told them that they had never seen Tanner so despondent. Soon after, Tanner's father came forward and told the authorities that his .22 caliber handgun was gone from a locked gun safe, and Tanner knew where the key was. A "Be on the lookout" was issued for Tanner's truck. Officers all throughout Colorado were put on notice, and the search efforts were at peak by that time. The operations completed around 8 a.m. the following morning, and Tanner's whereabouts had been established. Authorities had received a call during which they were told that the truck was observed on his late grandfather's farm in Coal Barn, Colorado. The venue was on the other side of the state, and roughly 5 hours distant from where people participating in the entire event resided. It was then found that Tanner's grandma had called a neighbor to establish if the truck was truly on the property, and upon confirmation, reported it to local enforcement. Given the distance of the location, collecting a squad to conduct an arrest would take some time, so the authorities decided to have a wildlife ranger travel to the property to keep an eye on Tanner so he couldn't escape. While Tanner did not make any attempts to exit the place, he did do several other things that may be classified as highly frightening. The neighbor whom Tanner's grandma had contacted and the wildlife ranger watched as Tanner began throwing rags drenched with blood into a nearby field. He also moved a roll-up mat into a woodpile behind the home. And what they witnessed next was truly terrible. Tanner stepped out of the house with a large blanket and put it on the back seat of his truck. The blanket appeared to be rather heavy for him to carry. Sticking outside of it was a human arm, but this time it was fairly evident what Tanner had done and might have gotten away with too. But luckily an arrest was made later that morning. The sheriff's deputies, CBI agents, and personnel of 3 additional law enforcements made it to the premises. They performed the arrest without any issues at the property. And when they went to Tanner's truck and opened up the blanket he had placed on the back seat, there was the corpse of Ashley Marie Doolittle. At this moment, no life-saving measures could have been performed, and everyone's worst nightmare had turned into a reality. Tanner first told the cops that the two of them were discussing their relationship in his truck, and Ashley was the one who lost control. Tanner's initial allegation was that Ashley took the rifle and pointed it toward her head. He added that he tried to wrestle the pistol away from her, but during the fight, it went off and she was shot. He went on to tell that he shot her 2 times after to stop her misery and suffering because the first shot didn't kill her. After hearing this, the officer warned him that he was not buying any of it, and after a few minutes, Tanner came clean. Since Ashley was dead by that time, the only details that could be supplied were to come from Tanner. He told the police that he and Ashley had got together near Lawn Hagler Reservoir, and from there they drove west towards Carter Lake. This is the same lake Tanner had gone earlier in the day to practice shooting. According to Tanner, here is when they discussed their relationship. Ashley told him that she didn't want to patch things up with him, but would marry him later in life, and right now needed time to explore other relationships. After this chat, they decided to drive back to where Ashley's car was parked, and that's when everything went south. He reported that Ashley scowled at him during the journey back, and that's all it took. He reached into the back seat, grabbed the handgun, and shot Ashley in the back of the head, not once, but twice. Tanner alleges that she didn't die right away, which is why he had to shoot her a 3rd time. According to Tanner, the 3rd shot was intended to terminate her misery. After that, he tried to scrub her body as best he could, and drove off to his deceased grandfather's home located at the other end of the state. Once he had delivered his statement, he was kept in the Mesa County Jail without bond. Ashley's funeral took place on June 17th at St. John Evangelist Catholic Parish in Loveland, Colorado. Everyone at the event, her family, friends, and other community members, reaching up to over 700, were all horrified by what transpired. The teenage girl was once the reason for hope, happiness, and aspiration for the town, but now grieved. Her mother, Marie Doolittle, remarked that she didn't want her daughter to be remembered for the way she died, but for how she lived. She wanted Ashley's memory to be that of a full-of-life 18-year-old girl who accomplished so much and set herself up for her own success. The age of 18 is a peculiar stage in life for many. During this age, it's often challenging to figure out what you're truly going to do with your life. Passion, profession, college. There's just so much going on that the sheer number of alternatives can be overwhelming for anyone. But this wasn't the case for Ashley. The alternatives weren't daunting for her at all. In fact, she attained greatness in practically everything she took part in. That's just who she was. At an age when many are confused about their life, Ashley has it figured out. But who knew those ambitions would be cut short? From everybody who attended her burial, she was regarded as lively, smiling, humorous, and down-to-earth. She was the lady-in-waiting to be the rodeo queen, and would have become queen next year. But over the upcoming season, she will now be honored and memorialized. Ashley had done so much for the community, and the funeral was indeed a large one. But apart from the event, a few other things also took place on that day. The FBI indicated that it would be supporting Larimer County in the investigation and will help with evidence and search and recovery. Tanner, who was formerly imprisoned at Mesa County Jail, was also transferred to the Larimer County Jail on the same day Ashley was being put to rest. The pursuit of justice for the Doolittle family was about to begin. On June 20th, Tanner made his first court appearance and was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping. The basis for the kidnapping accusations was based on the alleged fact that Tanner didn't let Ashley get out of the truck when she wanted to. Grief, pain, suffering, and torment would all continue to be a part of daily life for the Doolittle family after Ashley was in her ultimate resting place. The family would have to wait 1.5 years until legal proceedings began. In October 2017, the trial formally began and the courtroom was filled with family and friends of both teens. It was evident to everyone that Tanner had slain Ashley. The only question that needed to be answered was whether it was a premeditative act or not. The prosecution believed and maintained that the killing was planned out. They said that Tanner had gone out to the lake earlier in the morning to test the revolver and find an isolated area to perform the murder, but this wasn't their only assertion. The prosecution also mentioned that the revolver used for killing was a single-action pistol, meaning that the firing mechanism had to be manually adjusted after each shot. Given that Ashley was shot 3 times, the prosecution emphasized that the killing had to be one out of deliberation, not one out of the heat of the moment. The defense, however, maintained that it wasn't a planned killing and that second-degree murder would be an appropriate accusation. During the trial, Tanner took the stand, testified, and detailed the awful details of the entire affair. In his evidence, he never denied what he did, but he totally denied that he had planned to do it. Some more things that weren't part of his initial statement upon arrest were also revealed. He informed the court that he threw both their phones out of the truck after the murder. However, before throwing out Ashley's phone, he texted himself, pretending to be her. The texts basically said that both of them weren't together that afternoon and that Ashley was not going to meet him. But these facts just looked like a failed attempt to distance himself and cover up his tracks. However, the next fact he revealed is one that rocked everyone to their core. The night before he was arrested, he went to his deceased grandfather's property and damaged the glass sliding door to get access to the property. Once there, he cleaned up some of the blood, switched on the TV, and watched some cartoons before falling asleep. Yes, cartoons. How is it possible for one to love someone so much they can't see them with anyone else, but still have the guts to murder their sweetheart and watch TV afterward? This is a question that remains unanswered. At the end of the trial, both families had endured a tremendous loss. They lost their children and the lives planned ahead. With that verdict came justice for Ashley, but also a dead end for Tanner. The pain either of the families faced can only be described as horrific. Justice had prevailed, but no one won the case in this terrible reality. 2 families were shattered and pulled to bits in the process, but the case put light on a much wider element of life: breakup violence. In the United States, 1.5 million high school students encounter physical abuse from a romantic partner on a yearly basis, and 1 in 3 U.S. youths aged between 14 to 20 have been victims of dating violence. Despite this, 81% of parents say that teen dating violence is not an issue. Marie and Jeff Doolittle saw that not enough talk was going around a reality that took their daughter from them, and the fact that many other Ashleys would be living in the U.S. and other parts of the world. To address injustice and raise awareness, Ashley's parents founded the Ashley Doolittle Foundation. With this non-profit organization, they seek to maintain the legacy of their daughter and wish to continue giving back to the community the way Ashley did. Today, the organization wants to promote awareness and prevent teen dating violence, give victims the opportunity to connect with the correct support groups, develop programs in schools, and discussed the indicators of dating violence with students and parents. Ashley's mother said that they founded the charity to keep her memory alive. Her exact comments during the beginning days of the foundation were, "We want some good to come out of this through the Ashley Doolittle Foundation and attempt to prevent this from occurring to other families so others don't have to go through what we went through." The story of Ashley Doolittle serves as a severe warning of the risks that bloom in young relationships. While not all relationships follow the route of Tanner and Ashley, some still do. And it's vital to recognize that violence, whether it's physical, verbal, or even psychological, is not acceptable, and if ignored, it can lead to severe repercussions similar to those Ashley had to face. Her killer, Tanner, on October 4, 2017, was convicted guilty of murder and second-degree kidnapping, and was sentenced to life in prison without parole and an additional 32 years.